What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to our Pro Tour kind of recap series that Chris and I have been doing. Unfortunately, this will be out a little bit later today.
My fault.
It's okay. You're busy doing your classic raids.
We were doing.
What's up?
I said that's what we were doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're recording this early in the morning. I'm going to quickly edit this. So by the time you see this, top 8 will have been started. So go watch that after you finish watching this video.
That's right.
There's going to be top 8s going on throughout the day. Because if you don't know, they are going to be playing it match by match. And these are best 3. So it is going to be a long way through the top 8, but they are going to show you every single minute of it.
Are they not best of 5 in the top 8?
Sorry, they're best of 5. Yes, I missed
they are best of 5.
I meant to say best of 5. That
makes sense. Because you were saying it was going to take longer, so I knew it makes sense.
Yeah. So, of course, also for those that don't know, during that, they are best of 5. No sideboards until game 3. So you're going to see 2 unsideboarded games, which most Magic players are used to. So that'll be pretty interesting in certain matchups there. Before we dive in, once again, action was great. I didn't get to watch as much yesterday of the day 2 coverage as I did on Friday. Because I'm more busy boy on the weekend. I got to start. I'm in the process of moving as well. So this office is all going to get torn apart in the next couple of days here. Coverage was once again stellar, awesome coverage. There was some obviously great moments as we were watching players secure their route to the top 8 matches. Some heartbreakers, of course. We had LSV lose to one of the Lotus players who made. So we could have had 3 vampire decks in top 8 instead of double Lotus, right? But there's still a lot of cool stuff in the top 8. So our top 8 here. We're looking at 2 copies of Lotus Field, 1 copy of Amalia, 1 copy of Boros Heroic, 2 Rakdos Vampires, and 2 Izzet Phoenix. So
it's just like we predicted Ruckman. Just like we said. The difference is 2 Rakdos Vampires instead of 3. Just like we drew it up.
Exactly. I actually went and I relisted that just to see how close some of us were. Right. So you and I both picked at least Lotus making. Ricky did not believe in Lotus.
Yeah.
I did say 1 Rakdos mid-range. And you know what? That's just vampires. They're the same deck, right?
It's mid-range.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, there's no creativity. Jason Yee, of course, your champion from the day 1 recap, Jason Yee, lost possibly what people, I think, at least heading to top 8 are going to call like the play of this Pro Tour. I don't know if you got to see that. This is actually one of the matches I got to see yesterday. Where it kind of highlights how kind of dookie the Rakdos Vampires mana base is, right? Right. Because it's this is we're tied up. Winner here gets to move on to top 8. I think this is the lock for this. Is at least I believe where Sam Party locked his top 8 slot at least. Sam Party has 2 Caverns and a Mutavault in play. We're looking for a black source to cast this Sorin, right? He's got a Blood Tithe Harvester and a map token. Uses his Mutavault to crack the map token on the Blood Tithe Harvester. Jason Yee has 2 mana up and has to, in response, March of Otherworldly Light the Blood Tithe Harvester to keep Sam from finding that black source to cast the Sorin, putting shields down for the Dova Veto in hand. And then Sam's like, oh, all right, well, yeah, you got that. I'm going to play the Swamp from my hand, slam the Sorin, drop the Vein Ripper.
I think it was a pathway. But sandbagging the land is a classic. Old guys will remember that's an AJ Soccer play where AJ Soccer missed their 4th land drop intentionally in order to make opponent commit more to the board. And then opponent just goes all in going, oh, you missed a land drop, slams the 4th land, slams the Wrath of God, and wins the match as a result. So kind of a classic there, but just proper sequencing on making sure your plays are intentional. Why am I playing this land? Why am I doing this thing that I'm doing, right? So, you do your order sequencing, and hey, in that case, it's like, okay, you're going to kill that, and I'll just slam this Sorin, right? So, a killer line there. Fortunately for me, though, there is a Boros Heroic.
There is a Boros Heroic. Yes.
Yeah, and I called that one. I'm very confident. right?
You did. You called the Boros heroic.
Yeah, there we go.
Let me double check here. You also were the only person to say Amalia.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, you didn't have. You didn't have heroic.
What?
No, you had 3 Phoenix, 2 Blue Eye Control, 1 Lotus, 1 Amalia, 1 Creativity.
Oh man, I thought for sure heroic was my was one of my spicy ones, but I knew I did know that I said creativity. I thought I think I said I thought I was going to go off either heroic or creativity, but
You said I think you said wild card.
yeah,
That could be anything, and then you're like maybe heroic, maybe creativity, but I'm
okay,
gonna
that
block
sounds right.
creativity. You said something along
Yeah,
those
sounds
lines.
that sounds right. That sounds right. Creativity was close. Heroic ended up making it.
Yes, I mean, look at this top 8 here, and we'll talk about the deck list here in a second. After we talk about the important stats people want to know, right?
That's right.
No blue-white control, and blue-white control got pretty shut out here. I don't even see a copy in. There is one in 12th place by Yuta Takahashi. Also Dylan
10th.
Ikawa.
Like
So
the
we're
top
close.
16 is pretty full of Azorius control because it's 10th, 12th, and then I saw somewhere in like 20 something place. I want to say. Oh
Yeah,
no, just 10th and 12th.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
control definitely had the target on its back. People came with Thoughtseize, you know?
Yeah, I do think that, like, I think it was kind of expected that Phoenix would be the most played deck list coming into this event, which obviously was the case. But I think Blue Eye Control was kind of the targeted deck list because nobody wants to lose to Blue Eye Control, right? That's just a stain on the record. And I mean, Phoenix kind of just can rely on just bad matchups natively, whereas with Blue Eye Control, with how resilient it's gotten now with the addition of No More Lies, I think you do have to tech a little bit for that matchup. Start playing things like Cavern and stuff like that. So
I don't know if it's relevant or not because sometimes people pick up draws and like to secure seating. So I can't tell you if this was an intentional draw or an unintentional draw. Keep that in mind as I say this. But the only people in top 16 with a draw are the control players and one random Phoenix player. So I just think that speaks volumes as some of the problems that Azorius control. We talk about it all the time as blue-white control haters, or at least for me as a blue-white control hater, where it says, man, you know, the best in the world might be able to do it, but you got to be real careful. If you're not an Ed who has a big game up on all his opponents at a locals, that's not the deck I'd play.
That is of course our friend Ed, not Ed Big Boy. Ed from the what is it, 90 Day Fiance?
That's exactly right. Very different people.
The Ed you're talking about does not look like a thumb.
That's right. I would not marry that other Ed. Would marry the Ed boy, you know?
Yes. All right, so let's talk stats here real quick, then we'll look at deck lists. Obviously, real quick, let's talk about day 2 conversions.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go this one quickly. I think there's some fun stuff to point out with these. Obviously, with the Pro Tour, right, you have draft in between here. So these numbers, not always the best as a just purely constructed event, like multi-day event, right? But there is some fun stuff to point out here, such as all of Rakdos vampires converting to day 2. You also are, outside of that, you had Lotus Field convert 65.2%. Amalia was our highest conversion rate outside of vampires, with decks of like more than like 2 pilots, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Sort of our bigger deck list fields here at 70.6. You also have
surprises me.
Yeah, also, sorry, you have Jeskai Creativity, Enigmatic Fires, Omnath. You have some like 75s.
Not a lot of players played those. There's like 3 to 4 players versus like 10 plus.
Yeah, Creativity had several. Had like 8, I would say, but yeah, like less than 10 players. Amalia though 77.6. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that Ricky kind of briefly touched on it in one of the more recent episodes of the podcast, where Amalia, and it's something we've talked about too, is that Amalia is this very dominant deck in the sense that it is a very high bar gatekeeper that I think we've seen a lot of other decks fill the gatekeeper role to success, right? But at the same time, there's a very predatory metagame established to beat it. There are a lot of options to beat it. So yeah, if you're playing the FNM level, right, and you're just like trying to play your own brews, and then the FNM end boss rocks up with a Molly every week, like, yeah, that deck is going to look like the most broken, busted, powerful thing in the world. And the deck is very good, very resilient, right?
Yep.
But if you're seeing like decks like Phoenix, decks like Blue Eye Control that can just kind of like hold it off the board, establish control, and just kind of take things over, then it's not as format dominant, as especially as we've seen the last several weeks. Other than result online.
This is pretty good. I think these are the best players in the world knowing like what to save removal for, what to do. Because I think, to you and Ricky's credit, this is a good showing by Amalia. You know, It wasn't the number one play deck. There's only one in top 8, but again, if we look through the rest of like the top 16 at least, or top whatever, there's a couple more copies in there. Mm-hmm. Also, a copy of Izzet and Soul.
Yeah,
which I think you point. I think maybe you called for a top 8, but at least top 16.
I have a
match away.
Yeah,
a match away from top 8, right? To your credit there. So, I would say that I'm higher on Amalia now than I was before.
Okay.
And I thought the deck was really strong before, but I'm with you. I think if I was looking to, play a deck this Pioneer season, I can't argue against it, right? I mean, you've got a lot of incidental life gain to prevent yourself from losing to a lot of the random decks. So like, and especially in the coming weeks, people aren't going to be hating on you. They're going to be hating on Phoenix. They're going to be hating on vampires.
Yeah, hating on vampires. Everyone's like, let's go find our soul shatters. And just every other sack the highest.
Don't get me wrong. Any creature removal that exiles is also bad for you, but you have ways to directly tutor your cards. You know what I'm saying? Versus the opponents don't. Like, there's not a way to pull a Phoenix out of your deck. Obviously in the Phoenix decks, you can't tutor Vein Ripper out of your deck with vampires. You have to have it in your hand. So you have that advantage, and the advantage of, again, if they don't get exiled, to get them back from the yard. So I like Amalia actually as a pick going forward.
Yeah, so I mean, you also have Blue Eye Control and Rakdos both converting over 50% of their deck list. I will say I was very surprised, and kudos. I just want to kudos to all these pilots here. All of these like single pilot 100% conversion rates, right? Like those, once again, draft things aside, you still have to win at least a match to make day 2 in constructed, right? And these people are also kind of winning like 2 matches. I mean, shout out to all these one-of pilots that were just in the thick of it still in day 2, especially our Vanifar player. I know people are going to want us to briefly talk about the Vanifar deck list by Zach Mandelblatt. So I'm not going to pretend I know how this combo works, right? I just know that we're sacking stuff, moving up the chain, untapping our Vanifar as we go up the chain, and eventually we're cheating in gruff triplets. And then I guess, we're protecting the way with Thought Knot Seer is kind of the gist of it. I like that at a certain point we can't untap up the chain anymore, so we have to get Junji the Midnight Sky to buy back one of our untappers to keep the chain going again, right? This deck is hot. I mean, I know a lot of people were really rooting for this deck that, like I said, was still pretty in the thick of it, if I believe, there for a few rounds. I'm just going to see if I can find that pilot's final standing here to see just how far we made it by Zach Mandelblatt here.
Check quick. Do you think they're anywhere close to the top?
They are 109th place.
Okay, gotcha.
At a perfectly respectable 8-8.
There we go. Better than I would have done on my Pro Tour, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that deck list has been up on the screen. So let's talk about let's talk about the things people really want, numbers people really want, which is, of course, Mr. Frank Karsten posting up the matchup matrix for the Pro Tour, right?
Yes.
Of course, so these are all of our matchups before top 8 happen. And of course, you got the big thing here is that Rakdos Vampires was our most winningest deck list of decks played by more than 2 pilots. Quintorius Combo had exactly 2 pilots at 65% win rate. You have Boros Burn with 1 pilot at 70.5, and then you have Dimir Control, our most winningest deck list at 8-2 with a single pilot. That's just
deck, right?
Yes,
I think that was Gab Nassif on that one.
Yeah. And then Ben Stark was the Boros Burn player. So, and then I mean, you look here, Rakdos Vampires 60.2. Then you also have Is It Phoenix at 57.5, Amalia at 55.9, Boris Convoke at 55.6, Enigmatic Fires 54.3, Boris Heroic 53.7, Abzan Greasefang 53.3, Azorius Control 47.2.
Does that include draws?
I
don't think it does.
I don't think so either. And then, of course, you have, I'll also point out, Lotus Field Combo at 46.1. So Lotus Field had a pretty rough go of it, but I think, the players that found success with it definitely found success, obviously, with two of them being in top 8. Is anything here kind of shocking you on the matchup marker here? I mean, looking at Vampires, man, those stats look good.
They do look good.
I'm honestly pretty impressed at the 75% Lotus Field matchup here. Just because, you get damage on fast, right? But outside of Thoughtseize, it's really hard for you to interact with what Lotus is doing. So
you're mostly, sideboarding in more hand disruption, right? Where it's like, hey, that combo's pretty fragile. It needs all the cards it could get. And the reality is, if you do get the Slam of Vein Ripper, you don't have as long as you might think, especially when you can kill your own creatures, or you leave your opponent's stuff sitting around in the form of a little tree boy, a little slothy boy, something like that. So I'm with you, but I do think that, like I said, enough hand disruption really, really hurts Lotus Field as well. I think what's interesting to me is the heroic. Heroic, we know, is going to destroy Lotus Field. You are just faster. But looking at heroic real quick, only bad matchup that was not very good was mid range. The rest were even, including 57% against Phoenix, which is kind of what I was talking about, where it's like you think Phoenix would just have all the removal, but damage based removal is less good against the heroic decks, right? Whereas mid range, which was a 36% win rate, right, way less good, and where you're getting fatal pushed all day, is a little harder to dodge. But the damage based removal is there, and again against control, they can exile your stuff, but you can sometimes just race them, right? So really, your bad matchup is Rakdos decks, and the other ones are all even. So that goes to the player who is going to be the better player, and we saw Simon Nielsen, reigning player of the year, piloting that deck, use his play skill advantage to turn those matchups away in his favor versus the couple other players that picked up the deck, right? That's a good amount of matches, 44 and 38. That means there's a lot of players playing there. So
for sure. All right, let's talk about these top 8 deck lists then, shall we? Real quick. I'm not going to super dive into these because, of course, we will be talking about these on the podcast come this next week. So let me
ad nauseum, I'm sure.
What's up here? Let's talk about. So we got Ming Chen, Lotus Field, Christopher Larson on Amalia. Thank you, Godzilla. Boris Rook, Sam Nielsen, Seth Mansfield, Rakdos Vampires. Jean-Emmanuel De Perez on Is It Phoenix?
You French.
You
French hater.
Then we have Adam Edelson on Is It Phoenix? Alec Friedrichsen on Lotus Field, and then Sam Party on Rakdos. Seth Mansfield, a very, very well-known name in Magic, but I felt like through the process of the Pro Tour kind of got lost in the shuffle of everyone else making their big play for top 8, right? I mean, everyone was talking LSV making it, other big names. Yep. I feel like Seth Mansfield is kind of snuck in there just without being really, really talked about.
You nail about it. As far as coverage goes, you didn't hear about him a ton because he did kind of come from, I think his start was less than stellar. I think it was a fine start, middling, and then again just kind of rattled off those, a clean set of wins at the end. But like you said, the people we were looking at who got more feature matches were Jason Yee on Creativity, because they were, a couple wins, right? I think they had multiple win-and-ins. You saw, Jose got featured a lot on Izzet and Soul. So you got a lot of interesting decks featured. And unfortunately for Seth, when people were looking at the Rakdos Vampire highlights, they were putting in Reed Duke, they were putting in LSV, right? And then Samuel Party, because he was the best performing player on the deck. So unfortunately, Seth did get, but maybe that's better for them, right? Some people don't want to be in feature matches, but obviously at the end of the day, you've got a PT top 8.
Yeah, For sure. I mean, I also thought it was really interesting with his Rakdos Vampires deck list. I'm sure I've got one of them below us as we talk. It sounded like LC did a little bit of an interview, and it started like this deck started off as the more classic mono black vampires. Actually,
So Paul Rietzel played.
Paul Rietzel, well, exactly. So essentially, apparently, Paul came up and brought the deck, and then the rest of the team decided, what if we put in Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Blood Tithe Harvester, and then Rietzel was just like, I'm just gonna keep playing mono black. Yeah. So Paul Rietzel played the original version of the deck list. Everyone else was just like, put in Fable of the Mirror Breaker because free, right?
Yeah.
And the rest is history. Just goes to show you just how strong Fable of the Mirror Breaker is, right?
If Paul Rietzel brings you an aggro deck, you look at that aggro deck. I'm going to tell you that much. That man is an absolute legend of the game. Also, I've had a couple friends play against him, and I think everybody said incredibly nice guy. I know. I think now he's a family man, so I know he spends a lot of time doing that. But funny to me that he didn't adapt to the Rakdos style. It was just like, I'm just going to play my mono black. But I don't know him personally to say if that's on key or not. But it is funny, and funny that everybody else was like, this. He was probably like, I'm not playing these newfangled Saga cards. What is that? Yeah. I'm playing my vampires.
It was also good, too, because LC was just like, we knew the deck was good. We didn't know it was going to be, like, actually good, though.
Right. Well, hopefully, if you're playing it at a Pro Tour, you do know, right? It's led to some funny tweets of people being like, what idiots brought red, black vampires to the Pro Tour?
Oh, you mean such as one Richard Lynn?
That's not the one I was talking about. I was giving Ricky a pass, but it is goes down as one of the legendary tweets of all time, you know?
But what I loved is, so of course LSV tweeted the screenshot of that, and then that player was like, that's okay, I still got this, and then posted their match result where they beat LSV in the Pro Tour.
I don't think it was this Pro Tour though, was it?
Was it not? I have to go back and look. It was. It's funnier if it is, right?
It's funnier if it is, but I'll be honest with you. I didn't seem like that player was qualified, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what else do you want to dive into the deck lists? I mean, we talked about them mostly yesterday. Nothing too fancy. Do you want to talk to?
Yeah.
There actually is one I want to talk about because we didn't really talk about Amalia in our day one coverage. So I do kind of want to talk about. Is this the? Yeah. So obviously with Amalia, we saw a bit of a change in Amalia builds here. Now focusing on 3 of Fauna Shaman to help us tutor things up. So we're definitely just like even going to filter our hands even more now and just give more cards to help us tutor for the combo here.
I mean, we're not playing Collected Company in this deck, right? Oh, we're playing two of Collected Company. 4 chords, 2 Collected Companies.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I'm still an Amalian man. I'm gonna keep the deck around, but I gotta try this because if you're telling me I'm cutting Coco, like that's a hard sell for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who, when that card looks bad, unfortunately it looks bad, but it's a lot of velocity, right? And it's a lot of way to prepare your board. So it's like, hey, if I've got a setup, you know what I'm saying? Like, then I've got an instant board replacement and you have to deal with my current onboard threats. Maybe the argument here is it's not as good in a combo deck where I'm looking for particular cards, and I could see that.
I mean, Fauna Shaman does also, and one of the reasons why you're seeing that 2 switch is we switched playing 4 Return to the Ranks.
Yeah.
Back from 2. So Fauna Shaman lets us use our graveyard better with Return, which, I mean, like you're talking about, we have a little more control over our graveyard being full with what we're pitching with Fauna Shaman, we're tutoring up, than we can be with just a blanket Collected Company in our hand. So I do think there is some thought behind. Obviously, there's thought behind the changes, right? But I think there is some good credence. I mean, it also lets us play things like Haywire Might in the main. I do think we can get a little more 1-of heavy than just Chord, because Chord, while yes, be a classical toolbox card, in this scenario, and usually in this deck, is just finding us our next combo piece. But it's so expensive that we can't really use it for toolbox purposes because the deck, it has a board, but it's not usually like the biggest board, right? Where we can easily chord with a lot of creatures. Whereas with Fauna Shaman, we just get to go tutor what we need. So I do like that being allow us to play a few more one-ofs that we normally just see in the board. So I think that will be our kind of decks we talk about here. I mean, any other thoughts before I just say, hey, go watch Top 8. Hopefully you enjoyed us doing this for the rest of the PT. And we should, like I said, hopefully if time kind of works out right, we'll be simul streaming finals over on twitch.tv/Crew3MTG tonight. So if you want to go chill with the boys and we watch coverage, just time to talk about what's going on, have some fun, be sure to join us over there. You got anything else you want to say?
No, just an exciting day too, and definitely tune in for some of that top 8. Like I said, let us know if you guys like this type of stuff. We felt motivated to do it, and I'm excited doing it. So let us know, and we'll see y'all for top 8.
Yeah, all right, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.